Hi, y'all. Oh my gosh, I wanted to record a video and check in and show you my shining face and my ridiculous quarantine hair. Look at that. Look at that. Um, I wanted to check in for a couple of reasons. Number one, we have 2 weeks of school officially remaining, and I know that there have been a lot of y'all who have been working really, really hard in all of my classes, and I really appreciate you. For my AGS1 classes, y'all have been logging on to Alex. Spending a lot of time trying to learn some stuff, completing makeup assignments. For my pre-cal classes, you guys have been doing performatives and completing tests and showing up to Zoom meetings. And I really appreciate your efforts, and I'm very proud of all the stuff that you have been able to do, even without being in school over the last few months. And I really, y'all, I wish you knew how much I miss you. I, mm, I just miss you a lot. And I'm really, really sad that we're not going to be able to be in class together anymore. So just know that. And I know that there are some of y'all who were not able to be engaged for whatever reason. And I get it. I understand. It's a rough time, and people have a lot of barriers. And I just want to say to you guys that I'm proud of you too. And I don't want you, remember, your worth as a person is not equivalent to your grade. That's very, very important. And I want you to remember that always. I'm going to say it again. Your worth as a person does not depend on the grade you get in a class, period. So anyway, over the summer and through the fall, y'all, I hope that you will find different ways to engage with some mathematics, just to kind of keep your brain a little bit mathy, because math is so important. And math kind of helps us make sense of a lot of things. So I hope that you'll do that. The second reason why I wanted to make a video is to talk a little bit about what has been going on all across the country with the protests and the outcries against racism and all that stuff. And y'all, in math class, we don't really get an opportunity to talk about social issues as much as you might get in like your American Studies classes or your Lit Comp classes, or whatever humanities classes you're taking that really really get to talk about that, government classes and things like that. But I think it's important to say that all of this stuff is relevant to all of us. And there are a lot of mathematical things that relate to race and racism. For example, in the Constitution in 1787, did you know, I'm sure you did, enslaved persons were counted as 3/5 of a person for the purposes of the census. Which is kind of it's kind of a big deal, saying, hey, this enslaved African person is worth less than this one free white man, and the mathematics of that, and how when you do some fractional multiplication to say, okay, how much does the white man count? How much do the enslaved Africans count? That's math, right? The constitutional folks were doing math when they put down this thing that was very socially important. Something else that you can think of that relates to math and race is a practice called redlining. And if you don't know what redlining is, I encourage you to look it up. Basically, it's a practice that banks, when you go buy a house, you have to go to the bank and get a loan for the house, or when you want to buy a car. If you don't have, here's $30,000 sitting around. That's an expensive car, I'm not sure. Here's $20,000. If you don't have that money, the bank loans you the money, right? Or if you want to like add on to your house, or like build a deck, or like a second story. Hey guys, doing this money, I don't have a bunch of money to give you. I'm gonna go to the bank, and the bank will loan me money. For a lot of time, mostly in the middle of the 1900s, so like right after the war, 1940 something, all the way really through the 1980s, early 90s, banks had policies where they would not loan to people in certain neighborhoods. They would not loan explicitly to Black people. They would not. They were very specific about who they wouldn't loan to, which meant that white folks would get a lot of money in order to pay off, like to buy houses, to improve their houses, to buy cars, which then they could leave to their kids. They could be like, hey, kid, here's a house that I bought with this money. I was able to pay it off, and now it is yours. And Black folks didn't get that chance. A lot of people of color, not just Black folks, didn't get that chance, which means over time, if you look at, we've talked about investment and exponential growth, right? So if you leave some wealth to a kid, or you build up your own wealth and then you put some money in the stock market because you have money left over, right? You can build up that wealth. So if you see, I'm not sure which way this is going to show up on Zoom, but the wealth for the average white person climbs, right? While the wealth for the average person of color doesn't, right? Because they're not getting the benefit of bank loans and government programs for a lot of things. Another thing I would say is just being a mathematician, right? How do you get a degree to be a mathematician or an engineer or a physicist or something that requires a lot of math? You go to college, right? And for a long time in our history, there were a lot of great universities and colleges who taught about engineering and math and physics and all that kind of good stuff. And they did not allow people of color in. They were whites only because we were segregated for so long, right? So you have a lot of history where white people are able to access education and people of color are not. So you end up with this kind of differential of white folks in higher ed and in the more academic pursuits than you do people of color. And then finally, I would say for math and race, there's a whole lot of statistics being thrown around right now. And I really hope that y'all are being very careful when you are reading graphs and you're reading statistics and you're checking both axes and you're making sure they make sense. And you're saying like, what does this graph actually mean? When they talk about graphs of incarceration of people of color versus white people. They talk about graphs of like the amount of violence in Black communities and white communities, or they talk about, I've seen so many graphs that have been really problematic and I've been like, what are you actually trying to say? So use your math brains to really unpack what those graphs mean, right? So I would say, y'all, I think that this is an important topic. And if we were in class together, I would want to talk about this just to make sure that, holy cow, if you are a white person like me, just to make sure that you are using the privilege that you have to really be anti-racist, right? To make sure that you're not letting your friends make racist jokes and racist comments, or even like homophobic comments or sexist comments or things like that, that you're really holding your friends and family to a higher standard. And I would say also, if you're a white person, to make sure that you are speaking up for Black and brown people, because we as white people have more privilege in this society, and it's our responsibility to be good allies. And I would say to my Black and brown students, my students of color, I just want you to know that I see you, and I don't know, I want you to feel supported and know that whatever you need, let me know that we are in this fight together. And I hope that the fight to end racism in our country is not solely placed on your shoulders. I know that we white people have a lot of work to do to help out end all that racism, and I think we can do it, y'all. I think we can do it, all y'all. Every single one of you. I have 197 students this year, and every single one of you is awesome. And I have had personal conversations with all of you, and I know that you are great human beings, and I'm excited to see what y'all are going to do in the future. And I'm really, I just think y'all are great. And I want to make sure and impress upon you that I have high expectations that you are going to be anti-racist, and you are going to call people out on homophobia and on sexism and misogyny, and you're really going to make our country a better place, because I think it can be a better place. Okay, that's my spiel. That's what you would have gotten if we were in class together. And with that, y'all, I will probably record another video next week, just because I want to kind of have some closure for this year. But I love you guys. I miss you so much, and I hope that this time has taught us a lot of lessons that we'll be able to keep and bring into our next few years in school and even after that. So hey, holler at me if you need anything. Until then, thank you for everything, and I think that's it, y'all. All right, peace, love, and math.